My name is Roger Muller. This presentation is being given at the 2013 SAS Global Forum in San Francisco, California. The title of the presentation is the SAS Enterprise Guide, Implementation Hints and Techniques for Assuring Success with the Experienced SAS Programmer. Let's talk about that long-term traditional SAS programmer. Traditionally, they have been file-based, using an editor to put things into .SAS files. They most likely started in some other environment, such as the mainframe or Unix, or they may be into PC Windows SAS. Often this person is in more of a production environment and is not totally open to a whole lot of change and new ways of doing things. This paper will aid in bringing them over to the Enterprise Guide. They certainly aren't enchanted with terms like guide, visual, point and click, drag and drop. These are terms for people who just don't know how to write code. However, do remember that this long-term programmer is regarded as being very productive by themselves, by their peers, and by their customers, both internal and external. Okay, as far as this presentation is concerned, it is oriented towards that traditional long-term file-based program. It's going to cover a number of issues to make sure that that programmer is at home in this environment. We will be emphasizing options, workflows, and techniques that are sort of a little bit hidden, or at least partially hidden, and not immediately obvious when you first move into the product. This does not pretend to be a full tutorial on SAS Enterprise Guide, just a how do I convert from file-based and get into the graphical environment. Presentation style is going to be very much how-to. We will be emphasizing a workflow that makes the programmer faster, easier, and smarter, and thus improves bottom line productivity. With that, let's get to work. I have started Enterprise Guide. I have opened an existing Enterprise Guide project. In order to get the split workspace into two areas, I recommend you always do this. View, workspace layout, side by side. You always should be using either side by side or stacked unless you're on extremely small screens. I want to identify some key areas of the workspace and the screen. This is by no means an overview of their function, but just to give you a reference point to get started. To do that, I'm going to use my cheat sheet. First of all, at the top, we have the project name. It's a typical PC type project name with an extension of .egp. That stands for Enterprise Guide Project. That is where all of this information is stored. Okay, let's look at the project tree window on the left side. If we look within that project tree, we see a number of objects or components, including some program flows indicated by this little flowchart deal. One is called Roger 1. Another is called Roger 1 Program Flow Analyzed. Within those, you'll notice some SAS programs and assorted other objects of which we will be covering. If we look in the left-hand window in the workspace, we see a process flow for a program. Indeed, it is that simple program over there. In the process is process flow Roger 1, the program, and the output. When it is run, and it has been run already, it created two work data sets and two programs. Now, this is by no means a flow chart that is fully indicative of what's going on. We'll cover that a little bit later after we analyze it. On the right-hand side is some SAS code. And I want to stress the familiarity that you should have with that. First of all, it's got a name. It's not the best choice of names, but it's named program, sort of like program.sas if you would. You'll notice that it just contains very simple SAS code that would be done in an editor, just like you've always done. Once that has been run, you get a log, some work data sets, and some results. In this case, a SAS report and a listing. All of that is shown over here in the project flow or program flow. Use either term fairly interchangeably. Now, the last issue I'd like to cover here is this task status window. Make sure that you're always keeping this open. When you submit code to run, the activities that are taking place are indicated visually up on the flow chart as different things are being run. However, if you run into problems, such as steps taking an unusually long period of time, or you want to stop some particular process, this task status window gives you that capability in a much more eloquent fashion than Control-Alt-Delete. While I'm here, let's talk about a new capability that was added in SAS Enterprise Guide 4.3 and of course continues into 5.1 that we're on now. That is the ability to take an existing code file, such as this one that we have here, and do an analysis on it to make a more extensive flow chart. So we're going to go up here and Analyze Program. Remember, 4.3 and higher. Analyze for Program Flow. We're going to go ahead and begin the analysis. Takes a few minutes, depending on how complex the program is. It comes back and it tells us it found some data steps and some prints. Very simple program, we know that. Let's give this new process flow a different name. Let's call this Process Flow by Analysis. Now let's go ahead and create it. Now before we do that, I've already done this once in this particular program. This process flow right here, Roger 1, PF Analyzed, was done that way. We will be making a new one that will appear down below here by the name of Process Flow by Analysis. Let's go ahead and create it. And if we look here, we have had added Process Flow by Analysis into the project tree, and we've also got it open in this Process Flow window. It has not been run yet. How do I know that? Well, I'm not seeing the outputs for one thing. Let's go ahead and run this Process Flow. I'm going to use this facility to do the run. We're going to run this Process Flow by Analysis. That's the name of it. Notice the green and yellow going on here. And I don't know if you noticed it or not, but there were things happening down in the task status when we did that. Okay, let's go back to the program over here. And there's the last step in the last little program, that element that we run, the one that's in gray. If we wanted to look at this report that was generated, let's double click on that. There is that report. Very simple and straightforward. This would be how you would run and get into a flow chart an extensive SAS program that you've accumulated over the years. Now, let's talk a little bit about how you run code. There's lots of ways to run things. You could run the entire project. Let's look at this run here, do the pull down. We could run that entire project, all the steps that are in it. Or we could run this Process Flow by Analysis, this most recent one that's in this window, and that's what we did. Within that Process Flow by Analysis, we have branches. I'll highlight these items right here. That would be a branch, and we indeed could run that branch. We could pick out a node, such as this proc print, and run it. Right mouse, run proc print on local. Another option to us, we could open something like, let's take this program up here, the original program, open it in the editor. Yes, we could highlight a few lines like that, right mouse button, and submit. Many different ways to run code. A very important thing for you to understand is where SAS code that you were creating in Enterprise Guide is being stored. You obviously know I've made reference several times to bringing in external code that pre-existed. What if we do a new program? Let's do File, New Program. We get a blank worksheet up here, open editor. Let's type data 10, x equal 10, value equal 10, just to get something. And let's do a proc print. Notice as I type PR, it thinks I probably want proc. This is an auto-completion type facility, and I could indeed click on proc. But let's just go ahead and type it in, space. Now I'm going to do PR, and it knows I don't want another proc because you can't put two procs side by side. Probably want proc print. There's several other options, but let's take that one. Notice the context-sensitive help as I pass over proc print regarding syntax and that sort of thing. So there we go. Semicolon, run, semicolon. Now my question to you at this time is, where is this saved? We haven't saved it out to some given name. What if we just leave it here and do not use this save facility? Notice right now it says program asterisk, meaning that it is embedded and has not been saved out to any other place. And this is fine. These files can reside within the SAS Enterprise Guide project. Once we save the project, I'll go over to File, Save the Project. You'll notice the asterisk disappeared. It did give it automatically a name internally to this project of Program 2 because I've already got a program. Let's take a look at the properties of this program. Highlight it, right mouse, Properties on the general side, and as we go down, there's its label or name. It is embedded in the project. It is not saved to an external file. As long as we understand where this is, that's wonderful. If we wanted to put it out to an external file, we could simply go up here and do a save, save as, and it's going to come up to my SAS files. I'll just put this in here, program 2, demo of non-embedded. There are huge ramifications to this, embedding versus non-embedding, when you think about backup. Now, the Enterprise Guide project is a very rich environment and contains a lot of stuff. If you don't back it up, you're going to have to recreate it, and that could be tough. So periodically throughout the day, back up your .egp file, and certainly do it on a nightly basis. And in addition to backing it up so you've got a copy to work with, make sure that you've also got a copy on some other place than your one hard drive. Make sure you've got it either on some other hard drive or a network drive or whatever occasionally, so that in case the hard drive crashes, you're not out of luck. So the embedded SAS files will be taken care of. What about the non-embedded SAS files? You are on your own, and you're going to have backup procedures to those directories and do the same sort of thing. Back them up during the day and also have them on an alternative storage device in case of failure. I can't say more. Backup has never been more important. Okay, let's talk a little bit about when you're in a file-based system. Most often you're used to all of your output being generated into one big accumulated listing file. If we look at program flow 1 analyzed here, you'll notice that we got 4 different printouts. How do we get some of those combined and out to a report that's more of an accumulated thing? We do this programmatically. And I would add that you can do this for the SAS report style document, and you also can do it from the HTML document. We did not create HTML documents and combine them. It's going to be very similar to what I show you here in combining report. I will show you that in order to combine HTML, you do go up to Tools, create an HTML document, and then those processes, as I just said, would be similar to what we're going to do on the report side. Let's hit Escape. In order to make a report, let's go over and hit File, New, Report. And what's going to come up is, what do you have available to work with? Some stuff out of Proc Print, and we've also got a program there. We could drag and drop that over into this report layout. It's just another way of doing things. I'm not going to go through all the details. It takes a little bit of getting used to. At the end of the day, yes, you have SAS code that can be exported. And if we were to look at this report output, you would see that there's the proc prints with page breaks showing here. This is one particular style. There are many different styles, 20 or 30 out there that you can use. So don't fret too much about that, and just learn them as you move along. Let's go back to the process flow. Next, we're going to discuss how do you control what options are out here for printouts. Are you going to make all of them all the time, or just a few of them, or what? In order to set options, and these are the only options in SAS Enterprise Guide I tend to set. There must be hundreds of them out there. We would go to Tools, Options, Results General, and here's where we pick the formats, the reports we have. You notice the two that we're currently using are there. In addition, we've got rich text format for Microsoft Word, PDF, and HTML. All the other ones, forget about them for the time being, and only get into EG pretty thoroughly before you start digging through all of those options. That is controlling why we got two types of reports here. We're now going to open a SAS program, this very simple one, into a window, and we're going to look at some of the editor options. If you're used to using any good editor, obviously there's some features you want to have. Let's look at those. We would go to Program, Editor Options. Also do notice there are editor macros and keys and different kinds of things you can do. But in order to get started, let's look at editor options. By default, Show Line Numbers is not turned on. I can't work without line numbers if the file has any size. Drag and drop text editing is turned on by default. Collapse code sections is not. I check all these buttons here, so I've got the pluses and minuses to work with. These, I think, are very critical for you to get familiar with. Now let's look at an option within the use of one of these editing screens, and that is to be able to split it. This is only for one file at a time, but you can look at different places. We'll right mouse click in any white area, we will split it, and let's just go with stacked. Notice we have side by side or both, so if we had a large dual screen monitor, both would be wonderful. And we can scroll independently in a file, not two different files. And notice we've got the pluses and minuses and whatnot to collapse. So that kind of concludes the discussion on the editor as far as things to get into, to get started. Macros, keys, some of those kinds of things are above and beyond. Okay, what if you're in a situation where you want to develop your code in Enterprise Guide, but then you want to export it out as normal SAS files and just have other users use it, or you want to move it over to a different environment and use it there? Great. In this process flow right here, I'm going to click on Export, export all code in the process flow or in the project. Let's just take the process flow. A window's going to come up, and it's going to ask us some options on how we want to do that. The code available for export, okay, that's fine. Here's where it's going to put it at, that's fine too. Including headers is pretty good to do. That's just the header files that have been put on here, pretty routine. This wrapper code is a lot of information that's really not useful in other environments. Turn that off, because if you were to look at it, it's really going to, where did this come from and what's it mean? You don't need it in those environments. Let's go ahead and do the export. and there we've taken the code out. So we brought code in, we pushed code back out. Very flexible tool for code development. This completes our discussion on the use of SAS Enterprise Guide for the experienced long-term programmer, giving them hints and techniques to aid in the transition. I do hope it has been of value to you. My name is Roger Muller. Please do look forward to further videos coming onto my YouTube site with new ideas on not only this, but SAS Business Intelligence. Also, look at the papers that are included in the references to the proceedings for more complete documentation from other meetings. Thank you.